our esteemed speaker. He is a highly respected anesthesiologist and medical academician with extensive experience in clinical practice, education, and leadership. He has served as the Dean and Director of Medical Education at several prestigious government medical colleges, including Theni, Stanley Chennai, Tiruvarur, and Puthukkotai. Additionally, he has been a professor of anesthesiology at Thanjavur and Tirunelveli medical colleges, contributing significantly to medical training and research. Dr. Sundaram has held key leadership positions in the Indian Society of Anesthesiologists, including National Vice President 2016, National Governing Council member 2009 to 2012, President of the ISA Tamil Nadu State Branch 2011 to 2012, and State Secretary 2006 to 2010. His expertise, dedication, and contribution to anesthesiology and medical education have made him a distinguished figure in the field. Welcome, Dr. Sundaram. And the focus for today's session is research methodology. Now, here's a brief introduction of the topic. Research methodology is guided by principles that ensure systematic and objective investigation. Both qualitative and quantitative approaches are utilized depending on the nature of the study. The research process is initiated by the identification of a problem, followed by formulation of a hypothesis or research questions. Data collection methods, including surveys, experiments, or observations, are selected based on the objectives of the study. Statistical and analytical tools are employed to interpret the findings, ensuring validity and reliability. Ethical considerations such as informed consent and confidentiality are strictly adhered to. Application of research methodology are observed across scientific disciplines, facilitating advancements in knowledge, technology, and evidence-based practices. Outcomes are disseminated through publications, fostering further scientific inquiry and collaboration. So, without any further delay, I would now like to hand over the session to Dr. A.L. Meenakshi, sir. Sir, kindly proceed. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Clarnet, for providing us a platform and a very good cooperation so that we had 825 delegates for our inaugural session. That is a commendable achievement. And our secretary, that is ISA Puthukkotai City Branch, Dr. Kannan, could not join, I think because of some technical issues. So the burden of welcoming also lies on my shoulders. But again, the thematic address I had to give. So at the first, I welcome all of you and I request Dr. Munian, our ISA City Branch Puthukkotai President, to deliver his presidential address initially.
Sir, good evening to all, sir. It's my honor to welcome you all for the online webinar in the name of Puthukkotai Bhudhan conducted by Puthukkotai City Branch, ISA Puthukkotai City Branch. Today, we are conducting second edition of serial number 2 in the topic of research and methodology. Speakers are from Bangalore Medical College and Research Center. Research is a process for acquiring a new knowledge. Systemic approach involves diligent planning and intervention for the discovery or interpretation of new gained information. The outcome of reliability and validity of a study would depend on the well-designed study with objective, reliable, repeatable methodology with appropriate content, data collection, and its analysis with the logical interpretations. Today, the speaker, Dr. Nethra Madam, will give excellent lecture on writing a good research articles. Dr. Swathi will give excellent lecture on the publication of ethics and research methodology. The whole session will moderate Dr. Sudheesh Kannan. Our academic chairman, Dr. A.L. Meenakshi Sundaram, our motto is to involve PGs in the academic activities, which is conducted by ISA City Branch Puthukkotai in the name of Puthukkotai Bhudhan. Thanks for welcoming new PGs to involve in the academic activities in our webinar, sir. As anesthesiologists, we play a vital role in our ensuring safety and well-being of our patient during surgery and other medical procedures. Our association is committed for supporting our members during their excellent pursuit of their excellence and community well-being. Today, we are gathering for observing online webinar conducted our ISA Puthukkotai City branch in the name of Puthukkotai Bhudhan. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Munian. Now it is my duty. Now it is my duty to deliver the theme of this webinar. As all of you know, this ISA Puthukkotai is going for its second marathon. That is 52 weeks program. Every weekly conducting a program is very, very tough. And initially, in the first edition, the Puthukkotai city branch has successfully conducted it. And now the ClearNet eagerly joined with us. And because of that, our burden was a little bit reduced, and we are concentrating only on the academic aspect. Rest is taken care of by ClearNet, which is evident by the participation of 825 delegates in the first series. And now we have come to the second part, that is research methodology. Usually the research methodology comes at the end, but what we thought, for the postgraduate who has joined in the first year itself, he has to take up a thesis, dissertation topic. But previously, when we were students, we will be given at the end of second year, that is beginning of the third year, and we will be rushing to do the things. But more or less, it was a formality. Now the research has gone very deeply into our mind, and now the protocol is very stringent, and the standard is maintained in presenting a paper. Same way, even plagiarism check is also available in the net. Even with the artificial intelligence, some people are preparing the thesis. Even a check for artificial intelligence is also there. So the Bangalore Medical College eagerly came forward to talk on the research methodology. And again, my personal thanks to Dr. Swathi Nagaraj, who was the first one to call me the moment we have posted the idea of hosting a Puthukkotai Bhudhan. She was the first one to call. And not only she is interested, she has even dropped me some 20 numbers, the interested faculty. That shows the eagerness and the interest and expectation of the whole country for the small city branch Puthukkotai Bhudhan, headed by Dr. Munian and Secretary Dr. Kannan and the Treasurer Dr. Hema. So I thank them profusely. And now the first batsman of this series, rather first batswoman of this series, is Dr. Akalya. Akalya is going to talk about how we have to write an article. And Dr. Akalya is a undergraduate from Madurai Medical College. So the Tamil Nadu people should feel happy about it. She is from Madurai Medical College and she is a highly intelligent student. Rather, this time I'm happy to note all the three people are extremely intelligent, And Dr. Akalya won the honors in obstetrics and gynecology. She had a distinction in ophthalmology, and she has won the National Jaipur Award for the Young Talents. Same way, another one, she was a Rotary Club treasurer during her college days, and she is interested in many activities. To quote a few, she is a classical dancer. She is a classical dancer and is interested in cooking, embroidery, whatnot, everything. She had mastered the curricular and extracurricular activities. And I am very happy that she is a classical dancer and she is yet to be married. So I hope the husband will dance to her tunes, even though she dances very well. Now in future, he is going to dance to her tunes. And we welcome Dr. Akalya to be the first batswoman of this edition. And second is Dr. Swathi. I said, Madam helped us very much. She has pointed out many faculties, and Madam is going to talk about the ethics in research proposals. And again, she has also won Young Talent Award. That is the great thing about it. She has won it in ISACON 24, and she is interested in then traveling. She is interested in traveling and sketching. she has won the Young Talent Award, and she has designed a lung model for lung isolation. She has devised a lung model, and for that she has won Innovation Award in Patna. So when the PG is intelligent, assistant professor should be somewhat intelligent. And Dr. Nethra is associate professor, so she is extraordinarily intelligent. She has won the Young Talent Award. She won the award in 8th standard itself. Then 10th standard also, she was the best outgoing student. MBBS, she was the best outgoing student from Mysore Medical College. So it proves they are shaped. So then madam, when she is going to talk about research methodology, she has been trained in Stanford University for this research proposal. And now she is concentrating only on research. She is doing research activities. So hope we will get a new Miller from Karnataka. So when associate professor is like that, who is going to moderate? Who can moderate these three people? So it is none other than the professor of the institute, Dr. Sudheesh Kannan. All of you, I want to tell Dr. Sudheesh Kannan is also from Tamil Nadu. He knows Tamil very well. Even he can write a literary article on Tamil. Necessarily, he is also very much interested in writing research and research methodology. And recently, the Karnataka has emerged very much in writing articles, and even we had editors. Karnataka editors were three. IJA editors were Dr. P.F. Kottur, Dr. Harsur, and Dr. Balabhaskar. They have come from Karnataka, IJA editors. So Karnataka is having a close tie-up with these editorial issues. So I am very happy that this institute is taking part in this webinar on research methodology. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Sudheesh, moderator. Dr. Sudheesh, please take it over.
Sir, good evening, sir. As usual, you've been very wonderful and introducing and very kind and generous in pouring words in introducing us. And a big thanks to the ISA Puthukkotai branch for having such a great initiative. And I've been a part of this initiative earlier also in the past year also. And it's very glad to come back to this event once again on this occasion. And I'm very glad that a topic which is very close to my heart has been chosen to be presented for this day. Without much delay in the time, we can start off with the lecture, sir. So,
you can invite the speaker, Dr. Akalya, first.
Okay, sir, I'd like to now actually before I invite, I'd like to mention one point. I've been a part of a research methodology workshop all over India. We've conducted more than through ISA as well as other than that also, we have conducted more than 50 workshops so far. And this workshop is slightly different where rather than focusing on theory parts, we have actually made people actively participate by generating a research question and then doing sample size calculation as well as doing some statistical analysis also. And at the end of the program, most of them were very happy to know and were very happy to understand I realized that research is not as tough as a nut to crack. But of late, one thing what we have noticed is there have been growth of so many predatory journals or the journals where they publish articles without proper peer reviewing or without proper sound scientific review. So the whole purpose of this particular webinar is to make aware of the younger generation to understand that how to ensure that it's not only about doing studies, because by now most of them are very familiar with how to do the studies, but the question is how ethically you do it and how safely and ethically you publish it so that your article remains a sort of a good article for the scientific evidence to be generated based on that. For example, if your article is a good article and it's the article which is performed in a proper scientific basis, there is a very high chance that these articles can be picked up by most of the meta-analysis as well as the systematic reviews, and automatically the citation goes up. Once the citation goes up, obviously the popularity of the author as well as the article increases. So keeping this in mind, we shall start off with one presentation by Dr. Akalya, where she will talk about how to write a proper research proposal, which forms the heart of the research or the initial first step of the conduct of the research, followed by Dr. Nethra, who will talk about how to write a good article, like what you have to keep in mind. And finally, Dr. Swathi will touch upon the most important aspect, that is the ethical issues with regards to conducting a research as well as writing an article, and ethical components of a author, and also ethical things what we have to observe while publishing an article. So I'd like to invite Dr. Akalya to start our presentations with regards to how to write a good research proposal. Dr. Akalya.
Good evening, sir, madam, and good evening, everyone. I would like to thank ISC Puthukkotai City Branch and the academic chairman, Dr. Meenakshi Sundaram, sir, for this wonderful opportunity. And I would to like thank my HOD madam, Dr. Nethra SS ma'am, and all the teachers for their guidance and support. So my topic is how to write a research proposal. Proposal. So what is a research proposal? It is a brief outline or plan of your research work, including all the steps you propose to follow to achieve them. It is a first integral step of
Excuse
the
me,
research.
Dr.
The
Akalya.
objective
Dr. Akalya, go for slideshow. Go for slideshow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can I start, sir?
It's not coming anyway. Go ahead. I think it will not move now. It will not move. If you're not going for slideshow, it will not. The next slide you may not be able to move. You just try.
One second. Now, sir. 1 second.
Akalya, அந்த
Sir?
கீழே இது இருக்கு. இது you see that slideshow button down, no? Did you click on that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I
It
clicked,
was not.
sir.
You do one thing. You close it once again and open. That would be better.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. I think you are sharing the PowerPoint alone. You share the whole screen and then open the PowerPoint. Then it will get displayed.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now, sir. Sir?
No. It is you have to first you have to open that slideshow mode, then you minimize
Yes.
that,
Yes, sir.
then share that screen so that it will come up. Now it is moving. Now it is moving. Leave it. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, I guess you are sharing a window. Ma'am,
Yeah.
so ma'am, can you please unshare once and I'll guide you how to share it?
Dr. Akalya, you stop sharing so that again you have to share.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, do you see a green arrow downwards?
Yeah, I
Ma'am,
click.
please click on that once
Yeah, I click, ma'am.
and then go to screens, and then you'll see the PPT. Ma'am, you'll have to minimize the PPT first. You will have to open the PPT and then minimize it once.
Okay.
Ma'am, let me know when you have done that.
Yeah, I opened the PPT. Now I minimized also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now go to share and then go to screens. On top, there are 3 options. Screen doc. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. It's coming. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
And ma'am, may I please request you to make it full screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. One second. Yeah. Now it's coming. I made it full screen. As
Ma'am, here we can still not see it in full screen.
I'll one second. I'll 1 second.
Yeah.
Now can you see?
No.
No, ma'am, it's yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Now
now
it's full screen.
Full screen.
go ahead, go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Now we are going to see about how to write a research proposal. So what is a research proposal? It is a brief outline or a plan of your research work, including all the steps you propose to follow to achieve them. It is the first integral step of the research. The objective of preparing a research proposal would be to obtain approvals from various committees. It should be crisp and precise. It's not. It's not going to the next screen. 1 second. It's not going to the next slide. Yeah. The research question, it is the cornerstone of the research and forms an integral part. A good research question would satisfy this final criteria. So F stands for feasible. While choosing a research question, you should see whether you can able to carry out the study, whether the resources like human resources or any special investigations you are doing or any special devices need for your study or any fund you need for your study. So you should see the availability and I for interesting. It should be interesting to the investigator also and to the patient. Then N for novelty. Your research question should not be repeated. You should try to find something new other than the existing ideas. Then E for ethical. It should follow the ethical ICMR guidelines. Then R for relevant. It should be relevant to your subject and relevant to the scientific knowledge and helps in clinical practice, public health and future researches. Then the content of the research proposal are title, introduction, review of literature, objectives, materials and methods, statistical analysis, list of references and annexures. So let's start with the cover page. It should contain the title of the proposal and the name of the university and the college. Then the next page should contain name and the details of the researcher, name of the institution where the study will be performed and the course of study and subject, date of admission to the course and the title. The title should be a scientific title and it should be informative, short, specific and relevant and contain the details of the research hypothesis, study details, study population, study design and blinding. So these are the examples for the randomized control trial, effect of dexmedetomidine as an adjunct to isobaric ropivacaine in patients undergoing surgery for neck of femur under subarachnoid block, a prospective randomized control double-blinded study. And example for observational study, neurological complications following single shot brachial plexus block in adults undergoing upper limb surgery, a prospective observational study. So this is a model for the title page. It contains the title and the name of the university and the college. And this is a model for the detail. So it should be brief and in simple English. And always start with the epidemiology and the burden of existing knowledge versus a current knowledge. Then justify the need for your research and point towards the primary objective. Then put the references in chronological order as a superscript with 200 to 250 words. Then review of literature, turning to the topic of interest. So 5 C's are there. First, cite the literature that is related to your research question. Then compare the previous literatures about the methodologies, approaches and all, and find the contrast, what are all the controversies in previous methods, approaches and the results, and critique the literature. So find out which is the most appropriate method, more valid method, approaches and all, and then connect the gaps in previous studies and show how researchers use. This summary table helps you to put the related literatures and pick out the 4 to 6 relevant studies with 300 to 350 words. And this is an example for the review of literature. So it is always preferable to summarize each article in a paragraph, highlighting the details pertinent to the topic of interest with the superscript in chronological order. And then mention about the objectives of the study. So the aims and objectives should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time framed. So there are two objectives are there, primary objective and secondary objective. There should be only one primary objective. Then the remaining all parameters you can take into secondary objective. Then materials and method. Under this heading, point out everything clearly, like source of data, mention about what source you're getting. For example, if you're doing study in people posted for a particular age group for a particular elective surgery in the institution, or you're doing study in ICU patients, mention the source. Then study design. According to your research question, it may vary. For example, whether it is its observation study or any clinical trials. In anesthesiology, most of the time we will be using a randomized control trial, which we will be doing prospectively. Then mention about the tentative study duration, then place of study, where you're going to do. For example, tertiary care center or primary health care center or any OPD based study, everything you have to mention here. Then your sample size, it should be based on the primary objective with reference from the previous study or pilot study, and mention about the formula and the dropout rate also. And then mention about study population, and then the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So your research question should satisfy this PICOT criteria. So P stands for study population, I for intervention, and C for control arm intervention, which is a control group. Most of the time, standard of care will be given for the control group. Then what the time period for the data collection. Then under methodology, everything you should explain in a sequential manner. So after getting institutional ethics clearance and informed consent, how we are going to randomize the outcome, mention that to avoid it. Then about blinding, whether blinding is there or not. If it is there, whether it is single blinded, double blinded or triple blinded study. Then about allocation concealment. So usually it will be done excuse me, it's went off. It's not coming slide, excuse me.
Ma'am, your screen got unshared.
Yeah, it automatically got back. That's why I was searching. Yeah, now it's coming.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see? Now it's... Then about blinding. So blinding is there or not, whether it is single blinding, it will done after enrollment or going to collect, how we are going to collect and who's collecting. Any confounders in your study and bias, whether any memory bias is there or any recall bias, observer bias, everything you should mention. Then about the outcome measure also. Then this is the example for the workflow chart. So it is a mind map. This you have to put. Then this is a Gantt chart or timeline. It is for the researcher use. So it is a research tool that help you to plan study process within a stipulated time. Then statistician, what are all the tests you required for your study, and mention the test under this statistical analysis. For demographic and clinical data, you can use descriptive statistics, and for continuous variables like age, height, for categorical variables like any scales or scores you're using, frequencies with percentage can be used. So all statistical analysis will be performed using commercially available softwares. For example, statistics package for the social sciences. Then mention if any special investigations to be conducted you are conducting in patients or in animals. Then attach a letter of undertaking stating that the principal investigator will pay for the investigations, or mention about the details of the fund, any if any you are getting. Then mention about the ethical clearance, whether it's obtained or not. If it is obtained, attach a institutional ethics committee clearance letter. Then list the references in Vancouver style, but it may vary, depends on reviewed journals. You can add 8 to 12 references, including 2 textbook references. So this is an example for the article reference. So it is in Vancouver style. You should start with the author name, then the title name, then the details of the article. Start with author name, then the chapter name with the book name and edition with page numbers. Then signature and remarks. Attach a hard copy of a signature of the principal investigator, guide, co-guide, head of the department, head of the institution, along with the remarks. So this is a model for the signature page. Then annexures. So after writing a research proposal, so if you're doing study in a pediatric patient, at man's language and English, along with the principal investigator contact details. Then annexure 2 is a case record form or proforma. Then annexure 3 is any questionnaires or guidelines or scores you are using in your study. Then annexure 4 is a institutional ethics committee clearance. Then annexure 5 is any undertaking letter you're attaching. So this is a model for the informed written consent. So you should contain the details of your study and what you're going to do, and along with the signature of the doctor, participant, and the witness. Then this is a patient information form. You should contain the title of your study along with the details and what is the purpose of your research, what are the risk and benefit of your research, along with the confidentiality you are going to maintain with the patient. Mention that also. Then this is a model for the case record form. So this may vary related according to your research question. You can change the variables. Then this is the model for the certificate of undertaking along with the details of your study and the signature of the principal investigator and the guide. Then once the research proposal is ready, it can be presented to the faculty in the department for constructive inputs and corrections. Then after corrections, it should be presented to the ethical committee. So the research proposal should be approved by the academic committee, ethical committee, and before enrolling the first patient in the study, Clinical Trial Registry of India should be done. And these are the other necessary clearances that should be obtained related to your research topic. Then at last, you should write the brief summary of your research proposal. Usually it should be less than 500 words with the background information, aims and objectives, study design, methodology, data collection, statistical analysis, and references. So these are the things we should keep in mind while writing a research proposal. Thank you.
That was very crisp and nice presentation, Dr. Akalya. I think most of the top points regarding how to write a research for precise and brief manner. Just to add on it, suppose if there are some studies which are being done, for example, in case if you are doing a new drug, probably you will have to take certain other special permissions, such as certain special permissions from the Central Drug and Scientific CDCSO, or so if you are using new equipment or something, then probably we'll have to take permissions from the it has to be standardized by various standardizing agencies which are authorized to do so. And also, suppose if you are doing a research on some atomic radiations or some radiation related topics, then probably we'll have to take clearance from Baba Atomic Center. So there are certain special areas where we require special permissions when you're doing some special studies regarding various studies on animals or studies using radiation, etc. So again, so that as we go in detail, probably we can understand about that. We can always get the information from various online resources. So I think if there are any doubts, we can always discuss on the chat. And now I'd like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Nethra, to present regarding the method of scientific writing.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Nethra, you can proceed.
Yes, sir.
Akalya, you can stop sharing the screen so that Dr. Nethra can share the screen.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sudheesh, sir. At first, I would like to thank ISA Puthukkotai branch, President, Secretary, and Academic Chairman, Dr. Meenakshi Sundaram, for giving this opportunity for all of us to present and be a part of this scientific program. Thank you very much, sir. And it was a very warm welcome to all of us from BMCRI and wishes from BMCRI as well. So today, the topic that has been allotted to me is about writing a good scientific research article. Is the screen visible to everybody? Okay.
Ma'am, the screen is visible, but may I please request you to turn on your camera?
Okay, yeah,
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry for the interruption.
okay. Okay. All right, shall I start?
Yes, Nethra, I think you can
Yes.
proceed. Yeah.
Yes, the topic allotted to me today is about writing a good research article. So why do we need to publish? Is it just only for the sake of promotion? Or is it just to get some kind of recognition so that we can add it to a CV? It is not. Once we conduct a research that we have done with so much pain and we have taken so much time out of it, it needs to be published. By publishing, the article itself starts living its own life. The article gets critically appraised. The article goes through various researches where this article, whatever we are publishing as a part of a research work that was published, will be used by other researchers as well. And it can also become a part of some other systematic review or meta-analysis. It will also fetches funds in case we are doing in collaboration with any other bigger agencies. It also helps us to establish our names in the list of researchers. Most often we see that once we send our research work to any of the famous journals, the first email that we receive will be that saying that they are sorry to accept the article. So why do these manuscripts get rejected? So some of the common reasons are that there may be some shortcomings in the manuscript, or there might be some fault in the research process, and lack of novelty in the study, or the abstract may not be quite impactful, or it sometimes it's sending wrong article to a wrong journal. It's not actually the wrong journal, may not be the appropriate journal, and it may not be as per the journal guidelines. So each journal comes up its own guidelines, especially with the style of referencing or the number of tables, or it might be with the number of words. There might be some word limit or the way the references are required. So it will be maybe for the technical issues. So adding to it, if at all it's a non-English article, it tends to get rejected because the access to it gets limited. So not all across the world, so article, the research work may not be understood. So we need to know, is there any difference between a research article or that what we are seeing on newspapers, such as some newspaper clippings or statements or blogs? So the answer is yes, the scientific articles are different. So scientific article is reporting of research work, the reporting of the research process and results in a structured format. And it is designed for a particular audience. So this kind of article, it undergoes peer reviews where people may write to you asking for certain explanations with certain doubts, certain queries, which we need to explain. And it has to contribute to a scientific knowledge. So this is how this stands apart from the blogs and newspaper articles or essays. So we are all aware about the types of research articles. Commonly what we see is case reports because it's the easiest one, especially for a postgraduate to perform. Most often we see the presentation of case reports in our conferences. So I thought I need to talk a little bit about how to report case report also. Case reports, case series, narrative reviews. So as a researcher starts getting into this research field, one after the other, the person starts climbing up this research methods. So it may be case reports, case series, narrative reviews. It starts with letters to editors, then presenting observational studies, randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis. So when we look at it, the level of evidence is found to be highest for meta-analysis, whereas case reports occupy the base level of the scientific evidence. But still, it is important to know because case reports are commonly presented by our postgraduates or the beginners. So it is necessary to address, even if it is a case report, there has to be a format, there has to be a method in which it needs to be presented. So today we are going to focus on three aspects in the writing a good research article. One is about the structure, or rather it's the format of presentation. What should be the style or what should be the sequence if it's an observational study or if it is a randomized control study. So that comes about the format of presentation and also about the content. So in what way this has to be organized, what should be the content in introduction, what exactly should be there in discussion, and what is the order of presentation. And also a writing method, which means that it's the style of writing. Little bit about English or use of words, what should be the language that needs to be used. So we'll be addressing all the three as and when I'm going to present. So even before I start, so we have International Committee of Medical Journal Editors who have put across some of the standards or some of the guidelines that needs to be followed in case we are presenting a research article or a research work. If at all it is a randomized control trial, then it has to abide by consolidated standards of reporting trial. That is, by in short, it's called as a consort. And if it's an observational study, that has to follow the guidelines, which matches this strengthening the reporting of observational studies in epidemiology. That is called as the STROBE guidelines. Similarly, the guidelines are set for case report, which is called as CARE guidelines. There are other guidelines as well for systematic review and meta-analysis called as the PRISMA. And meta-analysis, there are various guidelines. So all these guidelines are easily accessible on the internet by going to the Equator website. So Equator is nothing but it's a network which is assuring the transparency and standards in health research. So these guidelines are to be abided, and most of the journals which are famous or which are very well indexed in PubMed, Scopus, and Embase, they insist that the ICGME guidelines are to be followed. So what I have displayed on screen is one of the checklists. So we do get such checklists on the website in the Equator network, or we can just Google it out by typing it as consort checklist. So these checklists we need to cross check before we write an article or after completion of the article to check if we have covered all the relevant points. So this kind of checklists are accessible. So what I have displayed is just a snapshot of that. So this is the consort. Consort is especially for a randomized controlled trial. Then stroke, this is also a checklist. So the checklist will differ a little bit if it is a observational study, that is a cohort study, or if it's a case control study, or it's a cross-sectional study. So if you go through the checklist, you'll be able to find that under the subheadings, there are few instructions that are given, and these needs to be followed. Similarly, for case reports, we have CARE guidelines. So in CARE guidelines, it also very clearly gives what should be the title, what are the keywords, how many keywords are required, what patient information needs to be given. And I'll added to this, there are also the writing guidelines and the softwares that are available to help us understand these kind of guidelines. So coming to introduction. So when we start an article, it is not just about writing the abstract first. Though the abstract is presented in the first section of the article, it has to be the section that has to be written at the end of the research work is over. And what the article will never be ready in one edit. It has to undergo a lot of drafts, lot of correction, edition and edition, maybe 4 to 5 editions with lot of inputs coming from editors and the co-authors. Usually the research article, whether it is case report or it is systematic review or it is a randomized trial, it will all follow through the process of research cycle, and the research cycle will be divided into IMRAD format, that is the introduction, methodology, results, and discussion. So in introduction, it always says what is there in the study in simple. And methodology, we are going to discuss what we actually did, what was there, how it was done. And when we come to research section, that is the R part of the IMRAD, the result section is what did we find? What did you find that you need to present? And in discussion, it is about so what it means, whatever results we have got, how is it going to cause a change in the scientific research? So that is about the IMRAD format. So one by one, I'm going across this different headings. So to start with, it's the introduction. So this is the first paragraph which is going to catch eye of any person who is reading the article. It has to be a zoom in paragraph. So it starts with a broader perspective and then it gets narrowed down. So it always starts with presenting what is already there in the scientific world, the information that already exists. Then comes a paragraph where we are going to discuss, making it more specific, what is missing. So once this missing is there, so when we realize and we say that there is something missing in the knowledge that needs to be addressed in a measurable way. So by the end of the introduction, we streamline it and we come down to the final objectives. So it is actually a zoom in paragraph, paragraph by paragraph, and it has to go from general points to a specific point, providing relevant information for the general existence also, as well as for the specific concern what we're talking by providing a citation, or it cannot be some kind of statement that I assume or you assume. It has to be already existing in the scientific world, in the research world. Example, if we are quoting an incidence, it cannot be on my own. It has to be published somewhere, it has to be documented. So we need to cite with relevant information. And we also, by the end of the introduction, we must be able to say what is that we actually want to study and how we plan to study. So this will be about the introduction. So the paragraph 1 summarizes the need. Paragraph 2 is the what is lacking and what you want to propose by adding something new. And the last paragraph is about coming to the deriving the hypothesis and describing the objectives. So what not to do in introduction? So we should not write endlessly to fill pages. It is not writing 1 page, 2 page, 3 page. It is not required. Ideally, it has to be in a single page or preferably less than 300 or 350 words in introduction. And we cannot make any general statements or it cannot be a personal opinion. It has to be a scientific information or a data which is having proper citation. And in introduction, we should not review the literature in detail. All we can say is take example an incidence of difficult intubation for that matter. We don't have to expand on that, why it is difficult, who was the author, who found it. That is not required. All we have to mention is what is the incidence of difficult intubation. So there is no need to copy paste, that is plagiarize, cut paste from somebody else's introduction. So Dr. Swathi will be talking more about all this. So I'm not going to touch on this topic. And there is no need to add irrelevant historical details. So we are not writing an essay. It is a scientific article. The information has to be very clear, very concise. So we need to focus on what we actually want to convey. Now coming to the method section. As I already told, it is the method section. We are going to discuss how we did, what exactly we did in the research work up to the minutest detail. This needs to be disclosed. But why? Do we need to disclose how we took the information? Is it required? Yes, because in the method section, it's about providing transparent information about participants, how the selection was done, what was the study setting, what were the parameters that were used, and why do we need to do this? Because to show that the study or the methods that you have followed are credible and the methods that you are followed are repeatable by another investigator. And also, when we describe the methods that or the definitions or the parameters that we have studied, it helps us in understanding and also interpreting the results. So if at all we are expressing and disclosing all the methods or the steps that we have followed, we may be able to come up with the need for future research as well. If not for us, from some other author who is reading the article may get a new idea to either try it out or improvise the method that we have already used. So the method section actually, it deals with how the data was acquired and how we included the patient. So what exactly we did. So it will be presented under the following headings, that is the study setting, study design, how the sampling was done, how the sample size was estimated, what was the study technique or the procedure that was required, the operational definitions, and the methods that were used to collect the data, and also how well we took care of human participation protection. So coming to the study settings, so this is the first thing that needs to be mentioned. Example, like where was the investigation conducted? This is because in order to interpret the results, we need to know, example, if at all they're conducting a study, or there may be a genetic variation, or there may be a difference in the population itself. So we need to mention the geographical location, and also this is helpful in interpreting the results. Coming to the study design. Yes, study design is a must. It is expected that the study design is mentioned in the title itself. According to ICJME, if it is a randomized controlled trial, the title should have a part mentioned as randomized controlled trial. Or if it's an observational study, that needs to be mentioned, though the study design is coming in the methodology. In the title, there is a need to mention whether it's a randomized controlled trial or it's an observational trial. So the study design cannot be on my own. There are certain set terminologies that needs to be used. Example, if it is a parallel allocation study or it's an observational study, is it a cohort study, analytical study, this experimental study. So there are terminologies which needs to be mentioned very clearly in your study design. And also in the study design, we need to describe what sort of population we are going to include. That is the mention about the demography. Example, if you are conducting a study on pregnant women, yes, they belong to a different set of population. So that has to be very clearly mentioned about the study population. Or if you're taking only on elderly, that needs to be very clearly mentioned. And also in the population that you have included or you considered as the study population, how you're going to include and exclude the population for your study. Then sampling strategy. So sampling is you have the enrolled so many patients. I'm not going to go in detail about this because sampling itself is a separate research methodology topic. So we just have to mention if at all we have enrolled, example, we have enrolled some 350 people for the study. How did we enroll and how did we pick the required sample? That is the sampling strategy needs to be mentioned. And what method was followed? Whether it's like you have taken a cluster sample, how is it? So that needs to be mentioned. Then the next thing that we need to mention is about the sample size. Yes, the sample size has to be mentioned, how it was calculated, whether it was based on a trial or it was based on a previous study, and what was the parameter that was taken into account for the calculation of the sample size. These days, even the formula that was used may need to be published. And because it entirely depends upon the effective parameter that was used for the sample size calculation. For this needs to be clearly mentioned in the sample size section. Coming to the study procedure. So when we are mentioning about the study procedure, the study would be already over. We often see that students, when they present, when they have conducted their research synopsis or the research proposal, the same thing the student copy pastes into the publication part also without realizing that the tense has changed. Now the study is over and we have to be very careful when we are presenting it as a paper in our conference or we are sending it as publication, that it has to be in the past tense. And we should see to it that there is continuity in the flow of the research idea. As I'm already told, it is the introduction and later on it is how we did, what we did and what we have not done, the limitation, everything needs to be mentioned in this section. So the continuity in the flow of research idea needs to be maintained. So, and when we start discussing about the study procedure, we should also keep in mind that we have to align all the requirements or the definition according to the objective that we have set for the study. It is also expected to draw a flow diagram like enrollment, example, allocation. We need to put a flow chart. if at all we have enrolled 500 and out of that few of them have dropped out, and finally you have taken how many were excluded from the study, how many were included. So this flow chart needs to be added. It is expected to be presented even for publication. So we have to describe all the steps in great detail and how we involve the participants, whether the participant consent was taken, and if it is a pediatric case, we need to take the assent from the parents, how we included, and out of included patient, included sample, how we excluded people who are not fit to be taken part in the study. And the enrollment date also needs to be mentioned, especially for clinical trial purposes, dropouts, allocation, all these things, and the time points of measurement, time points of inclusion for the study, completion of the study, how many months we took for the conducting the study, all this needs to be mentioned. So this is one of the example of that kind of flow chart. This is a consort flow chart if it's a randomized trial. So you need to explain what are the two groups you involved, which was the control arm and which was the experimental arm. If it's an observational study, it goes up to follow-up. So in randomized control trial study, we don't discuss more about the follow-up. Whereas if it's an observational study, how the patients were enrolled, how many years follow-up was done, and it's more about follow-up. That is the way the process was done. And mentioning about operational definition. Definition is very important because we are going to discuss the results, and when the results are presented and the statistics is being done, it depends entirely on the definition that we have taken. Example, if I say hypertension, I might be concentrating only on the systolic blood pressure, and author B might consider that it's mean arterial pressure that is important. Some other person may take as the pulse pressure. So we have to be very clear with the definition, saying what was the blood pressure, what was the definition, and what was the cutoff that was considered. Example, if it's a fall in blood pressure, how much percentage fall, or was it an absolute fall for MAP? These things need to be very clearly mentioned so that the statistical analysis and the correlation or the discussion goes on based upon the operational definition. Then mentioning about the data collection tools. It depends on what is the type of the parameter or the objective that we are using. So very clearly it has to be mentioned at what time point the study recording started or the data collection started and who is collecting the data, whether the person who is collecting the data was involved in the study or not, and how the data, how frequently it was collected, if at all we are using a numerical scale, when it was scored and what is the score, or if it is a qualitative scale that we are using, all these things need to be mentioned in the methodology. So, and not only this, once the data is collected, how this data was processed. We have to mention whether the data entry was made in a particular software. Most commonly what we are seeing is the SPSS, probably now it's 26 version. So which version was used, how it was done, the data transfer, whether it was blinded, and all the collection of the data, analysis of that, how it was done, the master chart maintenance. We need to maintain the master chart, the data collection and the data storage also, because sometimes if there is a query, the data needs to be accessed. So that is all about in methodology, is to maintain the transparency of the data also. And human participation protection, yes, we need to make a comment whether the institutional ethical committee was obtained, and also a clinical trial registration number is required if at all we are publishing any human studies. Now it is a must to register any study that is being conducted on humans. So clinical trial register number in India, we have the CTRI website where we have to introduce or actually upload our research proposal with a lot of details. And then once we acquire the clinical trial registry, it is when we can send it for publication. Along with this, there are a lot of details that needs to be attached, which Dr. Swathi will be telling it in her next topic about the informed consent form, or it is about the documentation of the evidence, everything, how it has to be given. That will be discussed by Dr. Swathi. So there are certain tips in writing the method section. One is that describe in the simplest possible way. We need not use a very flowery language. It is not required. All we have to do is use a scientific language, a simple language, and there need not be adjective. We cannot use our own words saying this was extremely important. This was extremely significant. So such loose words should not be used. It has, because when we say significant, it means something else when it comes to our results and the analysis section. So such words need not be used. And the methodology, it is better to follow the prescribed stages, which is already mentioned as I told you about the checklist. It has to go in a proper order. There is no need to mention that this person who was excluded suffered this and this patient didn't. There is no need to mention very minute details, which is not going to affect the result section of our study. Yes, we have to mention if there is any adverse event or any extra that we have found or any dangers that we have noticed, that needs to be mentioned. But as in the adverse events needs to be mentioned. So we all, again, a reminder to use it in past tense. It is always preferable to use active was. Example, instead of saying the study was conducted, we conducted a study sounds better. And it sounds more, sounds that the researcher has put in more efforts when the study was being done rather than presenting it as a third person. So in the method section, we are not going to discuss about the results that we have got out of the study. It's only about mentioning the methods that were followed. Though we are mentioning about the scales that we have used, whether it is the scoring, whether it is the blood pressure, though we are defining, the results will not be mentioned in the method section. So we do not provide the results, we do not interpret the results, and we do not even bring in other studies or the information that we have got from other studies. It is always better to use active voice, and there is no need to use a kind of jargon that we call. Example, as I told, overtly important, extremely significant, risky. So such terminologies should not be used. So coming to result section. So I already told in result section, we are going to just describe what we got. So what did we find? This is what we are going to discuss with results. So we are going to present the result as it is. Here in this section, we are not going to interpret why this came, why the result could have come, why this didn't come. That is not required. So it's only about presenting the results. So we start by describing the study population. As I already told, even in the first section in the methodology, it was about describing what is the type of population we have selected. So we have to start with that. So it is like parallel thing going on. We started by involving the study population. So in result section, we are going to describe the study population. Example, so usually the demography table occupies the first table in the result section. We have to discuss and describe our study population. Example, the demography, the age, the gender, what were the proportion of males, females, like that. So it is more of a descriptive data. So there need not be any exclusive test performed just to find out whether the age there was significant difference. That's not required. It's usually a descriptive data. Then comes the presentation of analytical data. So we have used a lot of formula or definition and the tools to measure. That comes in the next section. And additional reports, like we have found out there was hypertension, then what we need to find. It was in a secondary objective. Those comes under the additional report. Example, I have tried to find that I'm trying to find if this drug prevented hypertension. So in the result section, first I'll mention what is the hypertension, what were the readings, whether it is diastolic, blood pressure, MAP, everything. And in the additional report, we are trying to find out the correlation or the degree of the blood pressure drop. Was there any correlation that can be generated out of the results that we have derived? So that comes under additional reports. So in result section, the data is analyzed and again it is written in the past tense. So we should take care that we don't have to repeat again and again. If at all we have used, there are different components in the result section and different methods of representing. It may be in the form of tables, it may be in the form of graphs. So if at all we have described it in a section of table, then there is no need to discuss the same thing again and again because it's going to consume more time, it is going to be too wordy, and it does not add any extra information. So it has to be very precise. So for every type of study, again, the different guideline needs to be followed. And the next section, that is the discussion, depends entirely on the result. So the result acts as a binding factor from your methodology to the discussion section. And we have different ways of representing results, example, tables or figures. Usually we select figures or the graphs only for the illustrative purpose, just to say there is a proportion, this portion were male, this portion were female, or the constituent groups. But tables, they are like the standalone structures which are going to give us a lot of information. It might help us compare, it might show different groups. So it is very important to represent data in the table. So I'll be talking a little bit about representing data in the table as well. So these graphical methods of display, that is table or figures, they are all self-explanatory, and there has to be proper the details that needs to be included if at all we are presenting a table. So in clinical research, table 1 usually gives the descriptive data about the study sample. And if at all we are using the figures, so in that what we get to see is the flow chart. So the first figure needs to be the flow chart of participants, that which I've already told you about how we enrolled, how we divided the groups, what are the different things. So that comes under the flow chart. So these tables also, in what order should be present? So the tables or the results again needs to be organized based on the objective. If it is a primary objective, that table, apart from the descriptive table, the table needs to be arranged according to the primary objective, then comes the tables of secondary objective, then comes the representation for additional data. So there are certain limit number of, we cannot keep on adding 20 tables at a time or a large table with 20 parameters inside. So it is usually restricted. We have to go as per the guidelines that are given by the journal. So we have to cross-verify the information, whether we are repeating it or whatever we are presenting in the text matches with the results that we have displayed in the table. It often leads to that the table we have represent, it often happens that we have represent data in the table, whereas whatever we have written in the text and we have used up for discussion might be different. So we have to exercise caution whenever we are putting data in the table. And we need to provide footnotes. And there is a way to use footnotes. Sometimes the star is the first, followed by dagger, double dagger. So this instruction will be given in every journal. So once we submit, they will come up with this kind of footnotes. So there will be instruction given which we need to abide by. And if at all we are using abbreviations in the table, that needs to be given added in the footnote. So this is one of the example of a typical table layout with its components. But ideally, the table should not be colorful. It should not have like that barcode like thing what we see, alternate colored ones. It is not required. Ideal or the table, this has to have only 3 divisions, that is only 3 rows. The first row will be about the characteristic that we are going to study. The second row is about the data, and the third will be only about the total or the interpretation of that. So as you see, what are the row headings and how the footnotes is very clearly defined here, like the star, the dagger, double dagger. So how it has to be represented. So this is how the table has to be, and every table has to carry a title. What has to be mentioned, what is to be compared here, what is being done. So that has to be mentioned in the table. So when we come to pie charts, yes, student, we see that once they come up with a dissertation, when the data is limited, they start using pie chart also, bar chart also, and at the same time table, just to represent the age group or the gender, where it all means the same. So we need to select a particular type of chart which suits the
Nethra,
purpose.
I think we can be a little more precise and
Exactly. Yes, sir.
yeah, can you
Okay.
please, yeah,
Yes,
because
yes.
probably we have covered the time, so that's why. Okay,
Okay,
please don't.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So if at all we are using the line graphs, if it's relevant, if at all you are using a trend. So this is the picture, the pictograph, and the bar graphs are useful, especially when we are comparing different types of results. Apart from this, we need to also include some of the extra details like talking about the intervals, that is the upper and the lower limit of the confidence intervals. So what are the don'ts in the results section? It is we should not re-explain, that I've already told, not to interpret the results, and we cannot use etc. because it will be precise and it needs to be clear what we are discussing. So coming to the discussion section. So now that we have seen the results, we have to compile it and come out with the discussion. So in discussion, what we do is what it all means, what you have found, how it is going to be useful to the outside world. So in discussion, it's not just about comparing with different studies. It is about interpretation of the results and using this information as a part of discussion and how your study fits into the outside research world. Example, when we see a target, this appears like a target, yes, but if at all in the result section, we describe it as concentric rings of black and white rings or a red dot. So that is results. Whereas in a discussion, we come to the whole information and we say that it is a target. So this is how we are going to write the discussion part. So why discussion is important is because it gives meaning to the study results and it bridges the objectives that we had set, and it's also we are going to come up with the conclusion. So in the discussion section, we have to compare our study with the other studies which are already existing. We have to discuss how our study findings are going to be helpful into the different world, and also the strengths and limitation of the study. So in the first section, it will be about summary of the findings, like what was found. Then the other section and the subsequent section will be is what we have found and what it can mean. The third section will be about mentioning about the limitation. And in the last paragraph, it is about conclusion. The conclusions are always based on our objectives. So here it is an inverted triangle. So from what is the result, what we have got, we are going to make it into a the how well the results that we have got fits into the outer world. So this is the same thing that I have told. So comparing evidence is not matching. So comparing evidence is about studying what procedure we have followed and what procedure the others have followed and what were the drawbacks in our study and how is that the results are not matching. So this is about comparing the evidence. It is not about just matching that, saying that I have got 10%, the other person has got 20% as the incidence. So that is not what's going to happen. We are going to discuss why the difference has come up. So we have to mention about the strength and the limitations. Again, whether it was with the study population or with the methodology, or did we forget to mention, to collect any other information, or does the study need any further research? So conclusion, usually it has to be a small paragraph where we are going to draw it based only on our primary objective. It need not be a lengthy conclusion which leads us in confusion. It has to be linked to the objectives of the research question, and it has to be only a take-home information with 3 to 5 sentences. Then just a word about citation in research paper. This Dr. Swathi also will be telling that we need to respect and give recognition to the people who have already done the research. So appropriate citation is required right from introduction, sample size collection, and as well as in the discussion. So coming to bibliography, so the bibliography, the style of writing bibliography, it also depends on the type of the paper or the type of the journal where we are going to upload our article. So there are different styles of writing, Vancouver style, which the information we do get on the websites and also on the ICJMA guidelines, where what type of numbers we need to use, how to list out, and whether it's an electronic journal. All these informations are available. And one more thing is we should not use the complete name of the journal. Now it is expected to use the abbreviation versions of the journal, and also mentioning the DOI, that is the digital object finder. This is expected when we are writing the bibliography. Coming to abstract, the abstract can be structured or non-structured. The abstract structured means it is again under the subheadings, the background in this one, methodology, results, and discussion. Usually the abstract is written once the study is over. And there are also different types of abstract, that is called as the graphical abstract or the pictorial abstracts. So in abstracts, again, the focus is on the title. The title should be very concise, which Dr. Akalya has already told what should be a component of a title. The study design needs to be mentioned, and we are not supposed to use abbreviation, and we cannot use an interrogative title, that is the title that is ending with a question mark. So this is the type of abstract that I've already told, and this is the type of format of the abstract. This is a graphical abstract. And coming to keywords, usually 5 to 6 keywords. The keywords are the ones that help us search or link this article in once we do a search on PubMed or any indexing agency. So it gives recognition or it sort of tags your article. So we need to select specific keywords. There's based on the medical subject headings so that the article can be accessed faster. So I have already told about the rejection of manuscript, acceptance of manuscript. So overall, I would like to say that the 6S should be considered when we're writing, that it has to be simple, short, structured, a sequential order, and use of strong language, not kind of flowery language. It has to be very clear and very specific and concise when we write. So these are called as the Orwell rules, not to use metaphors, smileys, or figure of speech, or not to use like a poetry. So it has to be simple, clear, and concise. So these are my references. Thank you for the patient hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Nethra, for that elaborate and succinct presentation regarding how to write an article, because indeed that's one of the things what most of us fail. We do get good research, but end up not doing a proper writing, which eventually results in rejection of the article. Now, I'd like to invite Dr. Swathi for her topic on publication ethics and research misconduct. This is again one more thing which each one of us are bound to know. Over to Dr. Swathi.
Good evening, everyone. I bring greetings from my institute. At the outset, I would like to thank Meenakshi Sundaram sir for providing this opportunity. Now you have been appraised about, sir, my screen is visible?
Screen is visible. Yeah, but only thing is, it's visible. It's visible. It's visible. You can go ahead.
Okay, sir. Now that you have been appraised about the research proposal and how to conduct the research and how to write the research, now we'll go on how to about a few points about ethics of publication. So my outline of this talk is about publication ethics introduction, and why is it important, what happens if you don't follow, and how you can avoid research misconduct. And I would like to declare that I don't have any conflicts of interest, and I have no disclosures to make. And all the images here have been taken from Google, and you will also realize the importance of why I have put this disclaimer here. So publication as such, after research, you publish in order to gain more visibility, bringing the research to a public domain. And so my slide is not moving. 1 second. Yeah, it's moving, sir. Thank you. So you publish in order to gain more visibility, bringing the research to the public domain. With broadening one's research audience, apart from increasing your own academic credentials and also increasing the credentials of the affiliated institution, old knowledge can be preserved on which a new foundation has been built. So your new research, your research actually stimulates new research questions, which is more desirable for the scientific progress, adding on to valid evidence database. Researchers also can collaborate with others who are in the same boat, who are working on the similar topics, fostering collaborations and also joint research projects. So this is the overview of research process to publication process. So where does publication ethics come? Publication ethics applies at every level of the research, right from conducting the research to the publication process, including the researcher conducting the study, the reviewer evaluating the manuscript, the editors making publication decisions, and the publisher disseminating the research, all with the focus on honesty, accuracy, transparency, and in reporting the findings. So I'll be dealing in specific only regarding the author ethics, and I will not be touching upon editors, reviewers, and publishers. Even they have to follow publication ethics, but then I will be concentrating mainly on the authors. So who are the stakeholders? They are the ones who are interested in publication or are affected by it. So stakeholders in academic publishing include the readers. Apart from the researchers, next come the readers, with whom the publication is directly interacted with, and they include previous researchers as well as potential new researchers. Next come the individual research participants on whom the research is conducted. So finally, the outcome of the research will affect the public. Institutions and universities, the researchers are affiliated with, support the research and also provide a place for it to be conducted. So they also are the stakeholders. The journals, the editorial board, and the publishers are the intermediate stakeholders bringing publication upfront, and also the funding agencies. So why is it so important to follow publication ethics? It maintains the research integrity, which governs the standard conduct for researchers to protect the dignity, rights, and welfare of research participants and scientific community at large. It is generally defined as the set of principles that distinguish between acceptable and non-acceptable behavior or the way of conducting a task. So in this study, almost 765 PhD candidates were enrolled, and they were assessed by Bayes truth serum if they would conduct how they would conduct the research, if they would heed to research misconduct, or how they will go ahead with the practices. So almost 8% were willing to publish with misconduct. So this proves how susceptible new researchers are towards unethical practices. So what are the factors which influence unethical practices? In the era of big science, all researchers and students are under pressure to publish more and to report more research activities for successful grant applications, academic promotion, and course graduation in the race of discovering something first. So intense pressure to publish leads to shortcuts. Also, lack of awareness and not being adequately informed or trained, or lack of supervision by their mentors, or simply ignorance is also which is also called the academic laziness, results in unethical practices. Too often, pharmaceutical agencies hire medical writers and professional experts for writing research reports in their favor. So this can create a financial interest in the researcher. So finally, again, the affected ones are the stakeholders with the huge ethical impact. So a researcher's standing in the scientific committee is intrinsically tied to the integrity of their work. But when misconduct surfaces in the published papers, it casts a shadow of doubt over the entirety of the researcher's body of work. The researchers may have to face legal action, retractions of their publications, and also there will be funding loss as resources would have been wasted, and those would have been funded. Ultimately, this could hinder overall scientific progress in that field. And direct harm is caused to the participants who have consented to participate in the research. And also remember that public considers the findings of the publications in various research communications to be completely correct and unique. So I would like to emphasize again that responsibility of each researcher is to follow certain ethics in their work fields. So various organizations have played an instrumental role in development and adoption of ethical guidelines across universities, funding agencies, publishers, and institutions. So as you can see here, Office of Research Integrity, COPE, ICMG, NIH, all these are international guidelines which handle. And the national ones include UGC and ICMR. At the university and research institute level, there are ethical committees and review boards which handle. So we have this retraction watch, which is a database and a blog that tracks retractions and corrections of scientific papers. It was created in order to increase transparency in the retraction process. Now, what is retraction actually? Retraction is the removal of article from a journal after it has been published. Could be due to scientific misconduct or ethical violations. So here are the few issues I'll be dealing with today. These are all the ethical misconducts. I'll be dealing one by one. Few of you might know this famous German anesthetist who was called the Great Pretender. He's Joachim Bolt. He was a prominent German anesthetist with an international reputation who was considered in leading the research on intravenous fluid management, and advocated the use of colloids, especially hydroxyethyl starch. He had published a lot of papers on this, but then there was some suspicion regarding his investigations. So after some investigation, it was found that none of his articles had ethical committee approval, and all his data was fabricated, which led to retraction of his articles. Many systematic reviews and meta-analysis were based on which were based on his articles gave opposite results when his studies were excluded after the repeat analysis was done. Even the UK consensus announced withdrawal of their guidelines on IV fluids because of the retraction of his articles. Such is the impact of ethical misconduct by him, with serious implications on patient safety. So these are few of the articles which have been retracted by because of him. Till date, till May 2024, almost 210 articles have been retracted. When we see Indian statistics, India ranks third among top 5 countries in retracted articles, with inconsistent data and plagiarism being most cited reasons for the same. Now, what is the plagiarism? Plagiarism is use of unpublished or published ideas as their own work without giving due credit or referencing, maybe complete paper or in parts to support their statements. Now, what do I mean by this? So, on a lighter note, this movie Satya Pe Satta was completely inspired by 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. So, this was complete plagiarism. This movie, Ravan, this took only the poster of Batman Begins. So only the concept of poster was picked up. Both amount to plagiarism. One more example is this original work. Elephants are browsing animals feeding on fruits, leaves, shoots, and tall grasses. They consume hundreds of pounds of food a day and drink up to 50 gallons of water. See, the writer's work is same as the original work. So it is again plagiarism. Here, only a few words have been changed. So this amounts to plagiarism again. So look at this one. There are a few words which have been replaced. Synonyms have been written, and there has been slight paraphrasing. So, and source also has been cited. So this is an ideal way to pick up when you really have to pick up some original matter from some other study. Now, coming to types of plagiarism. First is the verbatim plagiarism, where you copy and paste from original work without quoting and citing it, like how I showed to you. Next is a mosaic plagiarism, where you copy and paste in a patchy manner. Only few parts are copied and pasted. Next is paraphrasing plagiarism, where you use someone else's writing with minor changes in the sentences using synonyms. And then there is self-plagiarism, where own work is plagiarized. There is reuse of significant portions of own work which was previously done without any attribution. Now, again, coming to self-plagiarism, there are different types of self-plagiarism as well. There is duplicate or redundant publication, wherein there is submission of same manuscript to two or more journals simultaneously. As in, the author submits the article to 2 or more journals simultaneously. And there is augmented publication, where additional data is added to previously published work. There are few changes in the titles, or he modifies the aim of the study, or recalculates or remodifies the results. And there is salami or segmented publication, where 2 or more papers are derived from the same research. A few more words on duplicate publication. As I already told, duplicate publication is submission of same manuscript to 2 or more journals simultaneously. Here, we often note that at least one author is common, so he would be the culprit doing this. And then, but in few instances, this is allowed. When is this allowed? Only when the author takes permission from the editor for republishing it for any reason. Maybe he wants to publish it in a different language, or he wants to convey a few other things, and the editor feels it is justified publishing it again. Then if that is permitted, he has to quote the earlier publication in his secondary publication. He has to tell that he's quoting it from the primary publication, and then only he can publish it. So this is when it is allowed. Here you can see that the presentation in the conference has been disclosed. So this is always necessary. This also amounts to duplicate publication if you do not disclose. Now, when we say plagiarism, you might get a doubt on how to represent the common knowledge. Common knowledge does not require citation. You can quote it as it is. There's no requirement of citation. So how to avoid citation as such? avoid citation, or when it is absolutely necessary to quote some lines, what you do is you quote the same lines and then write the name of the author who has told that or published it. You say Socrates said that, and write in the inverted commas. So it becomes absolutely necessary when it is from a well-known authority or guidelines, and do not forget to put it within quotes. And always attribute references, always express thoughts in one's own words, and please do not copy paste. Giving appropriate credit to the author in the form of citations, references, or footnotes is most welcome. Seek permission for reproduction of data, whether it is from another author or self-publication. If you want to pick up some images from other publication which is necessary for your publication, mail the author, he will give you permission, and then you can write it in the article itself that you are reproducing from the permission of the author. The same thing applies when you're self publication duplicate.
Ma'am, sorry for the interruption. Ma'am, your camera got off. Ma'am, can you please turn it on?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Is it on now? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Next is about plagiarism check software. You should be aware of few softwares which are available free and also paid. These are few free plagiarism softwares available online. Authenticate, Urkund, all these are paid softwares. Journals, when we submit, they ask for plagiarism report as well. So you should be aware how to use this, and then it is helpful for you to avoid plagiarism also. Now, when we come to data handling, there is something called data falsification and data fabrication. Data falsification involves manipulating or changing data of research materials, processes, and equipments. So what is actually done here by the researcher? As you can see here, with the thermometer, when the researcher has measured, it is around 60, but then he wants the result as 100 degree Fahrenheit. So he has falsified the data here. Whereas in fabrication, what he has done is he doesn't have the equipment. He is falsifying by making up the research data. So this is what is called fabrication. However, both of these overlap with each other. There is not really much of distinction between these two. Here you can see that in this table, here at 3 hours, the researcher has manipulated the data. He wants 10 here, 10 value here, and then 11 value here to make it statistically significant. So he has changed the data. Whereas here in fabrication, he has not measured the data at all at 1 and 3 hours. But then later, while publishing, he has added those. So this is he has made up the data. So this is called fabrication. Now coming to image manipulation, which is also one of the data handling management. This is also fairly common. Here you should note that images are manipulated. It should be noted that image enhancement is often acceptable, but then what you should remember is that it should not hamper the actual data. Slight modification of enhancement is acceptable. Cropping is also acceptable, but then manipulation is okay until you can improve the clarity, but then it cannot be nothing can be removed or obscured or enhanced in order to misinterpret the data. So this is one of the recent article which said that almost 127 papers from India were retracted for image duplication and manipulation. So what can be blamed here? It could be maybe use of artificial intelligence. Scientific community is facing new frontier of controversy as artificial intelligence is being misused to generate manipulated image. So next, coming to conflict of interest. What is conflict of interest? It is as per the ICJME guidelines. The definition is a set of conditions where professional judgment concerning a primary interest tends to be unduly influenced by a secondary interest. I repeat, primary interest tends to be unduly influenced by a secondary interest. So what is the primary interest? Basically, it is either patient's welfare or the validity of the research, which is unduly influenced by secondary interests like financial or non-financial interests. Financial interests could be like direct employment in the company or consultancies related to the organizations or the company, grants or patents paid to the researcher. And when it comes to secondary interest, it could be like personal interests like rivalries or bias. And then when it comes to intellectual beliefs, they can have their personal opinion which could reflect on in the research. So there could be biased judgments because of these personal beliefs. So here is one case I have picked up from the COPE website. Here they say, here they quote that some academic institutions are paying for authors for the name of the institution to be included in the manuscript, so that the institution has increased number of publications in a given year. The institution gives the author payment and the author terms it as funding or grant, which is not the case. Author publishes the research article in the journal with 2 affiliations and explains in the acknowledgement section that the institution gave partial grant. The terms of funding and grant are used to camouflage the purpose. So this is very obviously conflict of interest noted here. So we want you to cite the conflict of interest, whatever financial or non-financial in your research paper, as shown here. This is also another conflict of interest related to financial reasons. And then what happens when you do not declare your conflict of interest? If you do not declare, your integrity might be questioned later after you publish. In case you have a doubt if there is if your conflict of interest will be questioned, go ahead and declare. There's no issue. So here in this article, this particular author was the editor-in-chief of Korean Journal of Anesthesia since 2016. He himself was the editor-in-chief, but then she was not involved in any process of review of this article, including peer review selection, valuation, or decision making. So this is also one conflict of interest which has been declared. This is a screenshot from one of the anesthesia journal where they have asked about any conflict of interest and it should be declared. This is from Indian Journal of Anesthesia. This is the very first step before the submission where they ask you if you have any conflict of interest. And this is the ICMG disclosure form. This is used by many of the journals where all the disclosures have to be made. There are around 10 points. You can go through this one. This is a PDF available in ICJME website. It covers all these things, all financial and non-financial conflicts of interest. Now coming to authorship criteria. Now, who is an author? Author of a research publication is a person who is actively involved in developing and getting the idea for research, designing the research, he also conducts the research, performs the analysis and interprets the data, and finally even writes the research paper. So he is called an author. And almost all the journals recommend authorship based on this ICJME criteria. All these 4 criteria are applicable, which include substantial contributions to the conception or design of the work, or acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of data for the work, drafting the work and reviewing it critically for important intellectual content, final approval of the version to be published, agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring that questions related to accuracy or integrity or any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. So allocating authorship allows the researchers to assign appropriate credit and acknowledge their contribution to the research. However, authorship issues can sometimes lead to conflicts and give rise to various misconducts. This gift authorship is one of them. Here, he is not an actual contributor to the research, but then he has been included as an author for some other gain. There might be chances of increased acceptance in that particular journal if you put that author's name, or that author might be doing a favor in some other manner. So that is called the gift authorship. And then there is ghost authorship, where you're not giving credit to the person who has actually contributed to the research. you have omitted his name, but then it is purposefully omitted. So he's called the ghost author. He is a contributor as per ICJME criteria. Next comes the how to deal with authorship disputes. Now, who is the first author? Like I told you, one who develops the idea, drafts the, does the analysis, interprets the data, and then writes the journal. He is rightly called the first author. But then who is the corresponding author who corresponds with the journal? He is almost equivalent with the first author. He is the intermediate between the co-authors and the journal. However, co-authors might be given an order according to their contribution or in the alphabetical order. However, it is convenient. But then when you are handling the authorship issues, it is very important to establish clear-cut criteria for authorships right at the beginning of the study. So there should be written authorship agreements, and then authors should list their substantial contributions, and then it should be relooked often. If there is any change of contributions, author can be given up or down. And as the project and all the authors should, as the project progresses and then it is finalized, it is the responsibility of all the authors to review the manuscripts and approve the final version. And also all the collaborations should be declared. Now, this is how an now what do you mean by acknowledgements? Do they fall into the criteria of authors? No, they do not. They do not qualify for the four criteria by the ICJME. So what they might do is that they might provide some other help, like they might help you in limited data collection, or they might help you in supervision of the research data, or some kind of statistical analysis. They can be quoted under acknowledgements. And various journals would like to have the list of author contributions as well. As you can see here, each author has listed what contribution he has made to the publication. Now, this is regarding the collaborators. They might have a name of the collaborating project. So that name is quoted, and all the people who come under that investigation are quoted here. So this is how even the collaborators should be quoted. Now, coming to what kind of journals you have to choose. Now, as I said, with the big data coming up, everybody wants to publish their data, and because of the pressure to publish, authors who wish to build their academic profile and publish it at any cost may be tempted to circumvent the mainstream reputable journals, and they might submit their manuscript to the predatory journals with no quality control and also no peer review. Now, what do these predatory journals?
Swathi, we
Sir.
can just can we move a little faster?
Just
Yeah.
5 or 6 slides, sir. Just 5 minutes.
Yeah. Please, yeah.
What these predatory journals do, they exploit the authors by charging a publication fee, and they might even deceive them by falsely claiming that they're indexed in particular databases, or they might quote false impact factors. So they might misinform the readers as well. So how do we identify them? We can identify them by noticing that they might not have standard identifiers like ISSN or DOI, and they might have obscure indexing, like I told you. And what is important is that they might not be listed in the directory of open access journals. Usually, the reputable journals are listed in these open access journals, like directory of open access journals and journal citation report. And a few of the journals names, when you see, they do not they are not subject specific. The scope of the journal might be too wide, like here research and reviews. It does not tell you which subject it refers to or what it deals with. So too many fields might be combined in this particular journal. And submission charges may be taken. And when you get invitations for manuscript submission, most of you might be getting mails day in and day out asking for publication. So you can notice grammatical mistakes and various ads in their invite. and you will get unsolicited invitations to submit the manuscript by professionals not exactly experts in that area. So this is how you identify predatory articles, predatory journals. And coming to artificial intelligence, when you use artificial intelligence either for writing purpose or for any image creation, you always have to declare it in the publication. So you have to write it even in the covering letter and also in the manuscript. So can artificial intelligence be quoted as an author? No, absolutely no. It can be, it is allowed to be used in writing and research, but can never take up the role of an author. If there is any plagiarism due to AI, the author, the lead investigator takes up the responsibility of this plagiarism because he has used this. Now coming to intellectual properties, these could be inventions, methods, or techniques which could be related to human creativity. It is definitely some kind of ownership with legal implications. So here misconduct happens in the form of using this data that rightfully belongs to the authors. But remember that when you're publishing anything about your intellectual property in a publication, you are transferring your copyrights to the journal by submitting a form during submission, and it is open to the public domain following that. Now, how long will you retain the raw data? And why do you have to retain this raw data? You suppose anybody detects any misconduct in your investigation, they point out fingers at you. The investigation team might ask you to reveal your raw data. So the lead investigator should securely keep all the raw data. And for the biomedical and health researchers under which all the epidemiological studies and behavioral studies come, it should be maintained for around 3 years, and clinical trials which involves drugs, techniques, or equipments, it has to be retained for almost 5 years. And then for collaborative research, there is something called the material transfer agreements, wherein you share the data with your investigators and also the industry. Could be for financial reasons also. And what happens when there is unintentional misconduct? So you should always know that honest error is not actually considered research misconduct. So this does not mean you can justify yourself by saying you did it unintentionally. You always have to prove yourself that you were right on your part, but then you can still harm your credibility by not doing appropriately. So what things can you do? You can attend training sessions on good clinical practices and avoid academic laziness. And you have to maintain strict data management practices. Like you have to keep all the data with you, keep all the raw data with you, and then do not manipulate the images. And always, when you have doubt, communicate with your seniors and colleagues regarding what to do. They will know better what is right and what is not right. So in case there is any accidental misconduct, even before publishing, you can write to the editor for the withdrawal, or after publication, if you realize, you can ask them to do the self retraction. So I would like to conclude by saying that each of us is an artist of our days. The greater our integrity and awareness, the more original and creative our time will become. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swathi. We all know that these two topics, whatever we present today, is not a small topic, and it requires almost one full day in discussing these topics. However, really thanks to both of you for nicely, concisely presenting the whole topic and touching upon the most important aspects. So the question now, the forum is open for questions. So for the want of time, I would be happy to take 1 or 2 questions only if possible.
Any questions in the chat box?
Sir, no, sir. As of now, there are no questions in the chat box.
All right. No, actually, they have a separate chat box. Only
Okay.
they will pass on to the Zoom link. They have some commitment. Srishti,
Yes, sir. Sir, since all the participants have joined here, so I guess they'll be sharing their questions here only.
right, if there are no questions, right? Because it is, they have covered it fully. They have covered it
Yeah.
fully. Yeah, if there are no questions in the chat box, I think we can go for the concluding remarks.
Yes, sir. I think if there is
Or,
anything, you can. Yeah, we are always available for our contact. Our mail IDs and contact numbers are there with Meenakshi sir. So you can always take the help of sir, and you can always get in touch with us directly. I'd like to profusely thank Meenakshi sir for giving this wonderful opportunity, and also the ISA Puthukkotai for having this for promoting us to present this particular unpopular theme on this day. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kannan. It is really a fantastic discussion, and after 34 years of anesthesiology practice, where the research was not good at that time, now they have thrown a good light, rather better light, best light on
Yes,
this. On three were excellent, and anyway, in any webinar, getting a link will be difficult. Internet connectivity may be poor, so in spite of all these odds, anesthesiologists are with the motto, always be prepared. So people faced everything.
yes, sir.
And now we will try to rectify the small connectivity mistakes. So next time I will drop the message. I will drop the message email ID of all the you three
Yes,
to the
sir.
group, so that necessarily they will have so many doubts, but they don't know what is a research. That is a point, because only I think only 20% of the people are doing research. When research itself is
Yeah.
not